the guys during the week. I said, you know, the only time we really care about being number one is at the end of the year. But one of the things you do get by being number one is everybody's best game coming in.
Coming up next on the bench, the Cuse was in trouble early on against longtime rival Johns Hopkins. Maybe some four-leaf clovers in the Carrier Dome turf. We'll have the highlights of the Orange and the Blue Jays.
And Tim, Syracuse women's lacrosse took down 2 Ivy League foes this week. We'll have your highlights coming up.
And time to be jealous, Jays. We talk about the SU softball team. They've been spending a lot of time down in the Sunshine State, warm temperatures, and even some hotter results for the SU softball squad. It's all next on the bench. Top of the morning to you. This is On the Bench with Jay Alter. I'm Tim Langlois, sporting the green in honor of St. Patty's Day earlier this week.
Well, Tim, I'm not wearing any green, but I am Irish, so I believe that entitles me to a little kiss.
No, we'll look elsewhere.
Okay, fair enough. Also looking elsewhere this March, Syracuse sports fans with the Orange men's basketball team banned from the postseason as the NCAA tournament gets underway.
But plenty of places to look, though, Jay, with Syracuse women's basketball headed to the NCAA tournament, and both lacrosse teams off to great starts this season.
Absolutely, Tim, and we'll start with SU men's lacrosse. The Orange looking to stay undefeated against a Johns Hopkins team that needed a win after a rough start to their season. We're here at the Carrier Dome. Blue Jays only 3-3 on the year. Taking down number 1 Syracuse would be quite a feat, and Randy Brown gets things started 2-0. Johns Hopkins early, and the Blue Jays would roll on to a 5-1 lead. They came out of the gates hot in the Carrier Dome. Syracuse, who's undefeated, back against the wall early in the first quarter, and of course, Kevin Rice, the quarterback, turns to Randy Stotts, curls around the cage. What a finish from Stotts. He had 4 goals on the day, and that would tee up a 7-0 Syracuse run. This is why the Orange is the best team in the country right now, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about some style points in that celebration?
How about some style points for the name? Shaq Stanwyck, feed in front, one of the best names in college lacrosse. Not a bad finish as well. Tied at 8, and Mike Musina streaking down the cage. And of course, Dylan Donahue on the left doorstep puts that one away for Syracuse. 13-10, your final in the Carrier Dome. So after a first quarter scare, the Orange holds on to stay undefeated. What a result for Coach Desko's crew. And there for Citrus TV, our loyal beat reporter Marcus White, who took a look at the goalkeeper. Didn't see much of him during the highlights, but he had a big fourth quarter. It was Bobby Wardwell.
The 53rd matchup in the historic Syracuse-Johns Hopkins rivalry certainly lived up to the legacy, as Syracuse hangs on to win 13-10 in a thriller in the Carrier Dome. Score was tied 10-10 early in the fourth quarter, but SU senior goalie Bobby Wardwell shut the door down the stretch, helping to seal the win for SU.
Obviously struggled a little early on. Thankfully the offense and the defense played really, really well and, limited the shots. The defense really got in their hands and made them miss the cage a lot, and, offense was able to put up goals and really helped me out.
It's not frustrating because we expected a good goalie play from him. He's actually, I think, been a strength of theirs this year. The Hill kid behind him is pretty talented, so if John Desko and his staff believe he's the right guy, then he's a good goalie.
They just have really good shooters, and we knew that coming into the week that they definitely had guys who could shoot the ball, and I just had to kind of get into a rhythm there, and it took a little bit, and towards the fourth quarter I think I kind of got into more of a rhythm and was able to make some stops.
Syracuse resumes conference play next week when it hosts the defending national champion Duke Blue Devils. Reporting from the Carrier Dome, Marcus White, Citrus TV.
Here on the bench, breaking down the NCAA tournament with Michael Tricarico and Christian Pedersen now for
Good to be here.
Cuse Countdown on the bench as we delve into the bracket. And let's start in the Midwest region, where the story that everyone's been talking about all year long, Kentucky, they have not lost yet. Do you think they'll lose in the Midwest region?
The Monstars, as I've been coming to call them, because they're just too big. They're going to not run away with it, but they're going to make it out of this bracket with no problems.
No, they don't. Notre Dame is going to win this. Kentucky's not faced a team in the top 25 of offensive efficiency yet. Notre Dame's in the top 5 of that category. The Irish will pull the upset.
Very nice.
And how about the bottom of the bracket, too? Kansas with a tough potential road. Wichita State is right there at a dangerous 7.
It's interesting that the committee lined up Kansas and Wichita State right there for a potential matchup. I have Wichita State beating Kansas. Kansas doesn't impress me.
The one at the bottom half of the bracket that I'm really looking at, though, is Buffalo. They are going to be my team to make some waves and surprise a couple of people out of this region.
Yeah, Buffalo along with Valparaiso against Maryland in that 4-13 and 5-12. Seems like there's always a 12-13 matchup that ends up in that next round of 32. I have Buffalo and Valparaiso, with Valparaiso in the Sweet 16.
You also have the ACC champion Notre Dame looming at number 3. All right, now let's shift down to the West region, where Wisconsin is the number 1, Arizona the number 2. Who do you like there?
Arizona Wildcats. Number 2 is a great seed for them. The pressure is off of being the dominant number 1 team that they tried to be last season. They are going to make it to the Final Four.
I have almost all chalk in this region. Arizona, though, I think will beat Wisconsin. TJ McConnell, a great point guard. Really like his style of play. He does really well to run the point for the Wildcats.
Fun to watch.
And Arizona potentially getting a great break regionally wise, playing maybe in Los Angeles, where Wisconsin
borderline
has to
home
go
game.
west.
Yeah.
And now we head east to an interesting region because it's going to be played in the Carrier Dome. So who do you think's coming to Central New York and cutting down the nets and eventually going to the Final Four?
Virginia played here in Syracuse just a couple weeks ago, and I think the Cavaliers, with their defense, will end up cutting down the nets inside the Carrier Dome and moving on to the Final Four over Villanova. Defense will get them there.
I'm looking at this as one of the few brackets that I think we've ever filled out close to similar. I have Villanova beating Virginia, however, to move on to the Final Four.
I also, my big sleeper in that one is Albany. I have Albany over Oklahoma and then Albany over Providence to get to the Final Four, to get to the Sweet 16. To get to the Sweet 16, excuse me.
Albany. I mean, it was exciting, but we'll see. Yeah. That would be crazy for a 14 seed. But a lot of teams that Syracuse, of course, knows in that East region, with Virginia, with Villanova, with Louisville, all potentially
in general,
right
it should
there.
be an entertaining fan base that turns out.
Absolutely. Now let's move finally to the South region, where Duke is the number 1 there, and it looks like they have a pretty easy road.
They really do. We were talking about some of the other regions maybe being a little bit difficult for some of the top-rated teams. This is an easy one for some of the top-rated teams. You look at teams like UCLA, Georgetown. You just have missed rankings all across this bracket. Duke makes it out of there.
Yeah, Duke has by far the easiest road as the number 1 seed to the Final Four. I think they get there over Iowa State. The interesting matchups we talked about, 12-13 earlier on. I have Stephen F. Austin over Utah and Eastern Washington over Georgetown, who I think is higher rated than they should be at that 4 seed.
All right, now let's move to the Final Four. Who do you got coming out of this? Is it Kentucky? Do they complete the perfect season?
I have Arizona taking down Villanova 78-71 in front of 22,584 people.
Only 22,000 for a Final Four game.
That's a little low.
I don't know about that. Arizona beats Notre Dame in one side. Virginia beats Duke in a rematch there. Virginia beats Arizona for the national title. Defense wins championships, and Virginia will get it done.
All right, and because everyone has an opinion, it's March Madness. I got Duke over Kentucky in the pool. Now let's go back to you, Jay.
Tim, I'm with you. I got the Dukies winning it also. We are just scratching the surface here on the bench. Still to come, women's lacrosse, the latest from Gary Gates' squad, and a look at SU women's basketball. Coach Q's team heading to the NCAA tournament. We'll tell you what you need to know about the Orange. Stick with us.
Here's your check. Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. Got it. Nope.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early. You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
Three, two.
Welcome back on the bench, taking a look at some of the highlights of so far in SU women's lacrosse's season, and that was all inside the Carrier Dome. Well, last week was spring break for Syracuse students, and you know what? Gary Gait took the women's lacrosse team on a little spring break of their own. The entire team spent the week in beautiful 80-degree Florida, and on Saturday actually played some lacrosse. The Cuse took on Harvard in DeLand and just escaped the Ivy League opponent 11-10. This team has been playing in nail-biters all season long. Actually, before Harvard, a 14-13 overtime win against Florida, also on that spring break trip, and it all wrapped up with a one-point victory against the Crimson.
After that trip down south, the Orange came back to Central New York feeling good about themselves and took on a Cornell team that was 5-1 coming into the matchup, but the Cuse had won 8 in a row themselves entering Tuesday. Let's head to the highlights. Syracuse and Cornell in the Carrier Dome. Kayla Trainer and the Orange coming running out of the tunnel to start things out. Kayla Trainer has been leading the Orange all year long so far, and as I said, on a winning streak coming into this one. But early on, it was Haley Maharana getting Syracuse up 3-1, just under a minute into this one in the first half. Then Trainer gets in on the scoring action. Syracuse did good work for themselves, up 6-1 in the early going. Add to that again, it's Gabby Jakewith with a goal, 9-1 Cuse with 7 minutes to go in the first half. Skip to the second half where Cornell finally got some scoring. Here's Taylor Reed with a goal, cuts the lead to 12-4, still an 8-goal deficit. But then the Big Red would score 4 in a row. Here's Shelby McNeely. She scores, but it's a little bit too late because it's only 5 minutes to go in the game. Gabby Jakewith gets another goal here, puts Syracuse up by a touchdown, 14-7, and the Orange would hang on to win. 14-8 was the final score at the Carrier Dome.
Finally, some breathing room for a Syracuse team that's played in such close games all season long.
And you see it, there was 33 shots on goal. That's the most this season for the Orange as they take down CNY rival Cornell. Andrew Morris wraps it all up from the Carrier Dome.
Coming into Tuesday, 5 of the Orange's last 6 games have been decided by 1 goal, and with an ACC schedule like SU's, that can be a lot of mileage on the tires. Thankfully for Syracuse, the ladies rested up while beating unranked rival Cornell 14-8 at home.
I think, just figuring everything out and have had a lot of games, and it was really nice today just to come out strong and flying like I know we can, and we're just finding how to gel together, so just keep growing from here.
And I think we had some players step up and play a little better than they have today and got us off to a great start. So that was big and it was important. And, we face Northwestern next at Northwestern, very good team, and we need to play even sharper than we did today.
I feel really good about how the defense played today. I think we were, we made a couple adjustments in our backer, and we were getting a lot of really good pressure on the ball and causing a lot of turnovers.
Syracuse just touched down here for its one home game. Next up on the docket is 7th-ranked Northwestern next Sunday at 1 in Evanston. Reporting from the Carrier Dome, Andrew Morris, Citrus TV.
Now, the other big story here on the Hill, SU women's basketball heading to the NCAA tournament for a team record 3rd consecutive season. Coach Q and the squad will be taking on number 9 seeded Nebraska down in South Carolina. The Orange are an 8 seed. And if they advance past that, they will take on number 1 South Carolina, which will be a potential rematch of a game earlier this season. Here's what Coach Q and players had to say about their matchup against Nebraska.
The 8-9 matchup is Syracuse versus Nebraska, and I look forward to Quentin Hillsman's dress attire.
They have a guard, Alexis Peterson, one of the most improved players in the country from her freshman to sophomore year.
Catch the game Friday night, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN2.
Well, at first I heard it, but I didn't register to me, so I'm like, oh my gosh, that's us. Like, I got really excited, so it was a really good feeling.
Just feels like I'm a freshman all over again, and this is the NCAA tournament. To get called is like something you usually dream of, and then for it to be a reality for 3 years, it's good.
See, when you get to this point of the season, you knew you would get in, just trying to figure out where you would go and who you would play. So we are very excited. We understand that going to the tournament 3 years in a row is big, and that's what we want to do every year, is win the tournament and have a chance to win the national championship. So we're very excited about the opportunity and going forward. We just got to get to work.
Here in the Mello Center, fresh off Syracuse women's basketball earning the 8th seed in the Greensboro region. The Orange will face off against Nebraska alongside Lauren Walsh. Lauren, you've been covering this team all season long. You know, the Orange started out as high as a 5 seed, slipped to 6, 7, now an 8. Are you surprised with the Orange's seeding tonight?
Honestly, Jay, not very surprised at the fall in seeding. I mean, Syracuse hasn't played for roughly 2 weeks since the ACC tournament and that early loss to Wake Forest. So with Syracuse being a bit stagnant, not having many games to play in recent days, other teams have been playing, moving up, winning their conferences, and bumping Syracuse down a little bit in the seeding.
Yeah, a little bit of a fall for the Cuse, who face now Nebraska from the Big Ten. They're the 9 seed that Syracuse will face. Taking a look at the Orange's form, they won the last 4 games of their regular season, but slipped up, as Lauren alluded to, in the ACC tournament. How do you think the Orange fares against Nebraska in that first round?
Jay, I think that the early loss is, if anything, a motivation booster for Syracuse. They made it very clear they wanted to go far in the ACC tournament, prove themselves. They had a bye in the first week, come into a strong Wake Forest team and a very strong Hamby low in the post, and Syracuse wasn't able to pull out that win. I think going into the tournament, it's going to really be a momentum booster and drive this team to want to move on to that next round.
Well, some history tonight in the Mello Center. This is the 3rd consecutive year that Coach Quentin Hillsman's team has made the NCAA tournament. But Lauren, some more history to be made. Syracuse women's basketball has never made the Sweet 16. A lot of the players and Coach Q hinted that is the motivation to get to the second weekend in Greensboro this year.
And they made it very clear we take it one game at a time. Nebraska comes first. But like you said, Jay, how can you not be thinking about the Sweet 16? And there's going to be a potential rematch with South Carolina. All things considered, they want that Sweet 16 berth. And it's very clear amongst the team, amongst Coach Q, they want it, they're hungry, and moving forward, it's going to be in the back of their heads. Yeah,
Lauren, I want to touch on that 1 seed because this is a South Carolina team. Although they are the 1 seed in Greensboro, that Syracuse was leading against earlier this season, only lost by 4, 67-63. So what a juicy narrative in that second round to face and maybe knock off the number 1 seed and earn some revenge against a team that Syracuse went punch for punch with earlier in the season.
And you look at their second round loss to Kentucky last year by almost the same margin of points, such a close game. Those are the kind of games that Syracuse wants and that are really going to show what this team has in them to go forward and possibly make the Sweet 16. And with Coach Q and a couple more experienced players versus last year, we have Brianna Butler. She's been on the team now for all these 3 historic years. So these players are ready to make that jump and beat these teams when it gets down to the wire.
Well, we'll see if Syracuse women's basketball can make that jump. It all starts Friday night in Columbia, South Carolina. And, of course, you can follow for live updates on our Twitter account at Citrus TV Sports.
Halfway around the bases here on the bench. Up next, we dive headfirst into some SU softball talk as their trip to Florida started off shaky, but recovered nicely to pick up a few W's. We'll tell you about it coming up next on the bench.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
We are rolling right along on the bench now. March Madness is upon us, and as you know, Syracuse basketball is sitting at home because of this postseason ban. This also applied to the ACC tournament, so while conference tourneys all across the nation were going on, it's very plausible that Jimmy Boeheim was enjoying a little Pinot Grigio and watching the Big Ten tournament. Now, on the call for that tournament for ESPN, Syracuse alum Mike Tirico and his color guy, Dan Dakich. Now, what is important about that? Dan Dakich is engaged to Syracuse softball coach Lee Ross, who, by the way, looks like Jennifer Aniston, but that's for another day. The Orange softball team, led by Lee Ross, taking on another opponent. Let's take actually a whole host of opponents. Nice little road swing, Tim. By the way, I saw that they have played going to play 48 straight road games before they have a home game here in Syracuse.
It's crazy. They went all the way to California for some games. They played in Illinois. A lot of miles racked up.
And this is what I like. All the travel, you're going to get behind the 8 ball at first. A little slow start, going 6-0 down in your first 2 games, but then this team rallies. Okay, this is something Dan Dakich would appreciate about his fiance's team. 3 straight wins to end the road swing. And Syracuse, led by O'Hara, who had 3 home runs on that road swing. And just taking a look, we're at the midway point here at the softball season, despite the Orange not having a home game and just off to actually the identical start in 2015 that they had in 2014. So Coach Ross, I mean, you try and improve this team, but stuck at 12-14 with 14 less home runs between last year and this year.
And we were off last week here on the bench, so you may have missed what happened in women's ice hockey. The Orange was 1 win from getting its first ever NCAA tournament appearance, but RIT had other plans. Syracuse fell 2-1 in double overtime as RIT won the CHA tournament. A lot of letters there. It was the longest game in Syracuse women's ice hockey history. Syracuse, though, won't be heading to the NCAAs. Coming up here on the bench, we head over to the Orange Chairs to talk about lots of stuff coming up here on the bench. Our tweets of the week. Won't want to miss that. Jay's already over there. We have that coming up next.
They're coming. Places, everybody.
Light check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Everything looks good on our end.
And lights.
come alive with the forest. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
Welcome back here on the bench. And, you know, Jay, after a long day at the office, well, this is supposed to be you.
Oh, here we go. Tim, take it away.
You know, I like to loosen my tie. Actually, that's you.
Undo my belt a little bit, pour myself a little nightcap, get into my bed, open up that laptop, of course, and hit up my favorite website to blow off some steam.
Oh, boy. Well, the place that I go usually is citrustv.net. That's the place to go for all your content.
Tim.
And also our YouTube page.
Oh, yeah.
YouTube.com.
Certainly YouTube.
/CitrusTV. You can follow us on Twitter as well. It's @CitrusTV Sports. And on Twitter as well.
You can't forget about the loyal...
Or on Instagram, I should say.
Yes, and of course with Syracuse men's and women's lacrosse season now in full swing. You can also follow us on Twitter for live updates from every game @CitrusTV Sports. Now, to wrap it up, Tim, we've got a little treat for everybody. A little new fun we're having on the bench here to wrap it up.
Right.
The hashtag game.
Right.
We're big with the social media, as you just saw. Why don't you fire it up? What do you got
So
for
the
me?
first one, I'm going to say, what would you say about the NCAA sanctions? When you first heard about that, it's big news coming up lately.
Got to go #gross, as in
okay.
Dr. Daryl.
There's a pun
Gross.
there.
Well, first of all, I was sickened by the sanctions, but also this has fallen on the athletic director, I think. Everyone's trying to put the blame on Coach Jim Boeheim. I say you go even further than that. Go to the man at the top. That is Gross, Dr. Daryl Gross. So that is what is going on for me. I got one for you. So everyone's saying, oh, the sanctions, Syracuse basketball is not in the postseason. Well, you're wrong. They are. The ladies' team is in the NCAA tournament. The head man, Coach Q, he's a fashionable dresser on the sideline. What is your hashtag for the outfits of Coach Quentin Hills?
Of course, I had to go #Stylin' in SC. They're heading down to South Carolina.
There you go.
So Stylin' in SC and maybe some wins in SC. Again, that's going to be very interesting, a potential rematch if it happens.
What do you got?
And my next one here is about, well, you know what? I'm blanking on it.
Kentucky, man.
Yes, NCAA tournament. NCAA tournament.
Come on.
So Kentucky going undefeated. What do you think?
You're going to like this. It's going to come up on the screen right here. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. What do you have to say about that? Let's say it fast.
It's a long one. We only have time. We've quickly though. Last one.
I'll get you out on this, Tim. I forgot.
Oh no.
What do you got?
Oh no, we're really not doing a good
Tell
job
me you've
here.
remembered it.
No, I don't. What was it? What do we have?
Hey, let's put it up on the board.
Long way to go.
You got to figure this out.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out on the other side next time. Thanks for joining us here on the bench.
Too good. #long way to go. Tim Langlois says a long way to go.
We have a long way to go before we're real anchors.